In 1992, a curious young girl named Stella loved chatting with her father, Tom, about the mysteries of the universe. But their moment is cut short when her mother, Dangpon, suddenly reminds them they're late for the village's sacred ceremony. Every single year, the locals craft eerie meat dolls, parade through the streets, and then vanish into the forest to perform an ancient ritual. But this time, Tom makes up an excuse and slips away from the crowd. On the walk there, Dangpon shares the chilling legend behind the strange tradition. She says that many years ago, villagers stumbled upon a magical ring said to bring incredible riches. But greed consumed them. They fought over the ring until it shattered, and that's when a terrifying Demoness emerged. She slaughtered them all and cursed the village with famine. Since then, to keep her fury at bay, the villagers offer meat sacrifices during the yearly ritual. As the night goes on, Stella begins to worry. Tom still hasn't come back. Suddenly, a horrifying roar echoes through the forest. But instead of panic, the priest Jamnun tells everyone to keep praying, no matter what. Afterward, he warns them not to leave their homes until sunrise. Moments later, Tom reappears. But later that same night, Stella secretly sees her father sneaking out with a backpack. She follows him back to the now ruined ritual site. With a strange bracelet on his wrist and a pistol in hand, Tom scans the eerie clearing using a flashlight. Meat offerings lie scattered everywhere. Then he hears chewing. He looks up, and there she is, the Demoness devouring the sacrifices. In a blink, she vanishes. Stella, hiding in the shadows, doesn't even realize just how close danger really is. Tom leads Stella to a secret underground shelter and presses a radio into her hands. He tells her firmly, "Use it, only if I don't come back." Then, without another word, he steps outside. In the distance, glowing rings float eerily in the air. As he reaches toward them with his bracelet, the Demoness suddenly appears, her eyes burning with rage. But before she can strike, bam! The rings burst with light and begin spinning wildly, forcing her to retreat in a flash. Then, without warning, Tom vanishes into thin air. Meanwhile, Stella stares up in shock as a portal cracks open in the sky, and from it, human bodies and limbs begin raining down. Horrified, she dashes back to the shelter and frantically uses the radio to call for help. But before anyone can respond, the falling bodies smash through the shelter, destroying it completely. She bolts into the forest and runs until she reaches the edge. There, by some miracle, she spots a car, her last hope to survive. Fast forward 31 years, Stella is now a single mother working at a futuristic space exhibition. Life hasn't been easy. She's constantly arguing with her overbearing supervisor. Then, one night, she gets an unexpected call from her childhood friend, Effie. He tells her that her mother is very ill. Without hesitation, Stella grabs her daughter Volan and returns to the village. Effie picks them up in his car. As they drive, memories flood back. She remembers waking up at home after her father vanished. The village priest, Jamnun, and her mother tried to convince her that Tom had abandoned them and driven off in a truck. But Stella never believed it. She kept saying, "I saw everything." When she finally visits her mother in the hospital, her mother looks her in the eyes and says, "It's time you find your father." Then she hands Stella a strange code and whispers, "Never forget it, no matter what." Next, Stella comes face to face with Kong, June's son, and she freezes. He looks exactly the same as he did 31 years ago. Not a wrinkle, not a single sign of aging. But Stella isn't impressed. She's still furious with the villagers for denying what really happened that terrifying night. Since then, she's used her radio every single day, desperately hoping for a signal from her father, but all she gets is silence. Until now. That night, out of nowhere, a signal finally crackles through. It's Tom, her father. His voice is shaky and confused, and he mistakes her for Dangpon. Before she can even say a word to correct him, the signal vanishes into static. The next morning, Stella confronts Dangpon, and this time, she demands the truth. Dangpon finally breaks down and confesses she's been secretly communicating with Tom for years. But that's not all. She reveals the legend Stella heard as a child was never just a story, it was real. Tom had begged her to find a mysterious bracelet and collect the enchanted rings. Then, she must activate a hidden device called Genesis, located deep in the basement of an old radar base inside a restricted military camp. Only by entering the exact coordinates Tom sent can he ever return. Wasting no time, Stella and Ethy track down Kong. She tells him something is seriously wrong with his family and convinces him to steal Jamnoon's bracelet. She points out how suspicious it is that Jamnoon can freely roam the cursed forest, and why neither he nor Kong ever seem to age. That very night, Kong does exactly what she asked. He steals the bracelet. Then the three of them head straight into the forest, leaving Valin safely locked in the car. They arrive at the exact place where Stella last saw her father, and to her shock, the ring is still there. Stella, holding the stolen bracelet, steps closer. But then, bam! The Demoness appears right behind her, disguised as a human. Before anyone can react, the rings suddenly surge with energy and fuse into a glowing sphere. Stella grabs it instinctively. The Demoness lets out a screech and transforms into her horrifying true form. She charges at them. Kong fires his gun, buying them just enough time to run. They leap into the car and speed away, just as Jamnoon steps silently out of the shadows of the forest. Next, the group speeds toward the military camp and wastes no time. They head straight to the basement. The moment they step inside, the mysterious sphere begins to glow intensely. Then, suddenly, a hidden entrance reveals itself. They descend and discover a room filled with old, abandoned machines, dusty, silent, and eerie. Without hesitation, Stella uses the bracelet to activate one of the devices. In an instant, a crackling signal bursts to life. It's Tom. His voice comes through the static, urgent and strained. He reveals a shocking truth. He's actually a CIA agent who was sent on a secret mission to recover a device from the Genesis project. But the bracelet he used wasn't the original. It was only a faulty prototype. Instead of completing the mission, he was accidentally transported to an alien station, lost in the void of space. Luckily, the station could sustain human life, but not for long. Tom warns them he only spent 30 minutes there, but now he has just 20 minutes left before he runs out of air and supplies. No time to waste. He begins explaining the Genesis project, an ultra-secret operation launched by the US military after they uncovered real alien technology. Military bases across the globe had been testing this tech, all aiming for one goal: faster-than-light travel. This insane technology could transport people across time and space. The bracelet works like a controller, and the sphere acts like a mini spaceship, taking everything within a 5-meter radius. But there's a catch. The ring components were damaged by earlier users, and now the system can't function properly. Still, the sphere has just enough power to send them where they need to go, so they can repair it. Tom reveals something even crazier. 2 missing parts must be retrieved to fix it. One is stuck in 5600 BC, and the other lies 200 years in the future. With time ticking, Stella and her team agree they have to save him. They fire up the sphere and, whoosh! It launches them straight into 5600 BC. They land in a dry, barren land with cracked earth stretching in every direction. But their arrival doesn't go unnoticed. Suddenly, a horde of zombie-like cavemen appear, snarling and chasing them. Heart-pounding, the team runs for their lives until they spot something incredible: a settlement surrounded by a shimmering invisible force field. The field recognizes the sphere's presence and lets them pass through safely. Inside the settlement, the cavemen stare in awe. They treat Stella and her team like gods. But there's no time to bask in the praise. Stella quickly realizes that if they take the missing piece of the ring, it will leave the tribe completely exposed to the zombie threat. She freezes, torn, but Eth quietly reminds her, history already shows this tribe won't survive, no matter what we do. With a heavy heart, Stella knows she must go through with it. Meanwhile, little Volin plays happily with a local boy named Morn. High above the village, the missing piece of the ring floats in mid-air, gleaming like a beacon. Kong aims the sphere and pulls it in, but as soon as he does, disaster strikes. The protective force field suddenly drops, and the zombies come charging in with terrifying speed. Eth and Kong stay behind to hold them off, while Stella sprints through the chaos, trying to reach Volin. But in the confusion, she grabs the wrong child. She accidentally takes Morn instead. Before she can fix her mistake, the sphere activates and zaps them back to the present. When Stella realizes what's happened, she's furious. "We have to go back," she yells. But Kong reminds her, the sphere can only follow its missing parts until it's fully repaired. There's no way to control the destination yet. Just then, out of nowhere, Jam Noon appears. "I've been waiting for you for 10 years, he says grimly. He leads them outside, and what they see is horrifying. The entire village has been reduced to ashes. The Demoness, enraged by the stolen ring, slaughtered everyone. Despite Jam Noon's desperate warnings, Stella and Kong attempt to use the sphere anyway. As Stella activates it, Kong wrestles with his father in a heated struggle, then bang! Kong accidentally shoots Jam Noon just as they are hurled 200 years into the future. When they land, they're instantly surrounded. An armed group of young warriors is already waiting with their weapons drawn. Stella's eyes lock on a strange floating sphere. It looks just like theirs. But before she can say anything, everything goes black. They've been knocked out cold. When they finally wake up, the youngsters are no longer threatening. In fact, they're desperate. They beg Stella and the team for help. The youngsters finally spill the truth. Their sphere? Just a cheap imitation. It barely works, and their time is running out fast. They explain that their city has been under non-stop assault by a group known as the Westerns, and terrifying monster-like creatures. These brutal attacks started exactly 200 years ago, right when the original sphere was activated. After stumbling upon the ruins of the old military base, they tried to recreate the sphere themselves. It worked, sort of. They managed to build a protective force field to keep the monsters out, but now their food and supplies are almost gone. They know they won't survive much longer. Now, they're begging for Stella's help. They need her to teach them how to properly use the original sphere, so they can escape not just from the city, but to a safe point in time and space. Stella isn't sure. It sounds dangerous, and they're strangers. But Athi steps in, his voice calm but firm. He reminds her, if we help them now, we can still save your father and Volin, who's trapped in the past with Morn's mother. Meanwhile, back in the present timeline, Kong is tending to his injured father. Jam Noon lies weak but conscious, and at last he confesses everything. He reveals a dark truth. Long ago, he and a woman named Luan were abducted by the US military for a classified time travel experiment, but they didn't follow orders. They sabotaged the entire project and made a daring escape with the sphere. But that escape came at a terrible price. The explosion during their breakout damaged the ring's in structure. One piece was flung thousands of years back to 5600 BC. And even worse, it changed Luan forever. The radiation twisted her body and soul, turning her into the terrifying Demoness who now haunts the time. To hide the horrific truth, Jam Noon twisted Luan's story into a myth and started secretly feeding her to keep her alive. But then, one day, a tragedy struck the nation. a brutal massacre of students occurred for reasons no one could explain, and once again the mysterious sphere intervened. It somehow erased the evidence, covering up the entire incident. During that violent event, Kong was gravely injured and fled into the forest, bleeding and disoriented. That's where Jam Noon found him and saved his life. He raised Kong as if he were his own son. Then, Jam Noon reveals another shocking secret. The sphere's radiation has frozen time for both of them. That's why neither has aged a day in decades. With his strength fading, Jam Noon hands Kong the final missing piece of the ring. His voice weak, he tells him, "Do what you believe is right," when Stella returns. Then he passes out. Meanwhile, far into the future, Stella is working with the youngsters, teaching them how to use their replica sphere properly to move through time and space. As a test, they decide to send a captured monster into the past, then bring it back after 30 seconds. It's risky, but it's the only way to see if their system really works. But as they train, disaster strikes. Their activities accidentally reveal their location. The Westerns detect the energy spike and immediately launch missiles at the city. Panicked, the youngsters scramble to finish the test before everything goes up in flames. But something goes horribly wrong. The creature returns, but not as expected. It's no longer inside the cage. Instead, it begins jumping randomly from place to place, killing everything in sight. Chaos explodes around them. Even worse, their repeated tampering with time rips a hole in space-time, causing a ripple that unintentionally sends Volan and the cavewoman to a nightmare timeline, where the city is being torn apart by enormous monsters and a horde of zombies. The two manage to hide inside a crumbling building, but their hiding place won't stay secret for long. Next, Stella figures out the awful truth: the sphere isn't working right because the part they used isn't real, it's a fake. The genuine piece is still with Kong, which means they must travel to his time to retrieve it before it's too late. But before they can even initiate the jump, the rampaging creature, still loose, comes crashing back. With no choice, Stella and the team quickly coordinate and use the sphere in a clever way to trap and destroy the beast. They win the battle, but the damage left behind is catastrophic. The city lies in ruins, and things just keep getting worse. The Westerns are closing in fast, armed, ruthless, and ready to finish the job. The teenagers make a tough decision. They choose to stay and fight for their home. Ethy stands tall beside them. He's not leaving either. Before Stella and Morn depart, the young fighters give them a powerful gift: an upgraded ring. They explain its incredible function. It can restore the entire timeline. This ring has the ability to reset the chronological order of the universe itself. The past will be corrected, but the future, that's a mystery no one can predict. With no time to lose, Stella and Morn travel to Kong's timeline. Once there, Kong hands over the real missing piece, finally making the sphere complete. But then, bam! He pretends to know Volan's exact location and suddenly activates the sphere, sending them hurtling into his original timeline during the horrifying student massacre. Stella's heart sinks. She realizes instantly that Kong lied. But Kong, eyes distant and haunted, says he needed to return to finally understand who he really is. As they arrive, Kong is stunned to find his old friends alive and celebrating his return, but the joy doesn't last. The revolution outside has already erupted into madness. Armed men burst into the scene, gunning down his friends one after another. Desperate and enraged, Kong keeps using the sphere, jumping back in time over and over, desperately trying to save them, but nothing works. No matter what he changes, the outcome is always the same. Kong's reckless jumps through time finally reach a breaking point. His actions trigger devastating consequences. The timelines start to collapse into each other. Events from the youngster's future, his own past, and Volan's chaotic timeline begin to merge violently, sending everything spiraling into chaos. In the future, the Westerns arrive at the settlement and launch a brutal, full-scale assault. Explosions shake the ground as the teens fight for survival. Meanwhile, in another twisted timeline, the cavewoman and Volan are running for their lives. Zombies swarm the area, closing in from every direction. Finally, Kong understands the truth. He's the one responsible for all this mayhem. His constant time-hopping has fractured the universe. With a heavy heart, he accepts his fate. He hands the completed sphere to Stella. "Go," he tells her. "Save your daughter." Then, he turns and walks back into the collapsing timeline, choosing to stay behind. Despite being badly wounded, Stella pushes through the pain and activates the sphere. She's transported into Volan's chaotic timeline, and at last, she finds her daughter. But the reunion comes with heartbreak. The cave woman, Morn's mother, has been bitten by the zombies, her skin pale, her breath shallow. She knows her time is up. With tears in her eyes, she says a final goodbye to her son and accepts her fate. Stella grabs Volan and Morn, holding them close, and jumps back to her original timeline using the sphere. Now, barely able to stand, Stella collapses, but manages to hand the sphere and bracelet to Volan. "It's up to you now," she whispers. Just as Volan approaches the activation machine, a terrible presence fills the room. The Demoness suddenly emerges in the basement, ready to strike. Morn instinctively raises his staff to protect Volan, but then something unexpected happens. The Demoness doesn't attack. In that intense moment, Volan establishes a link, a psychic connection, with Tom. His voice echoes through her mind, calm and steady, guiding her step by step as she prepares to activate the machine. At last, the sphere roars to life, power surging through every inch of it. In an instant, it resets the very fabric of reality. Time itself begins to rewind, racing all the way back to the Big Bang, and then surging forward again, this time correcting every ripple, every tear, every broken moment. A colossal black hole erupts into existence, pulling in all the chaos. Every twisted anomaly the sphere ever caused gets sucked into the void, erased from history, until only one clean, unified timeline remains. The Demoness lets out a final cry, but she doesn't vanish. Instead, she transforms back into her original self. Lawan, soft-eyed and human again, she's finally reunited with Jam Noon. The pain is gone, the curse is lifted, and across time, the student massacre, wiped clean, never happened. Kong and his lost friends are granted peace at last. In the distant future, the youngsters survive the invasion. The Westerns are gone, and hope returns to their world. Now, in the present, Stella lives in calm for the first time in decades. With her mother, daughter, and Morn by her side, she begins to heal. She starts writing it all down, the impossible journey through time that nearly tore the universe apart. As she sits quietly, her eyes land on the completed sphere and